So you'd think coming off the week of Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms being released and it being Labor Day weekend that news rumors would take a vacation, but nope, they didn't. So let's get to the latest news in today's Mortal Kombat News mashup. So first up, let's talk about some Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms news. So the reviews are in, and I've given it some time, and yeah, the reviews are pretty much the same as from when I did the review. So given enough people to watch the movie and even review it, like I think IMDb said there was like 2,000 plus reviews or, audience reviews or whatever you want to call it. But, Rotten Tomatoes, okay, so from the time of this recording, from the time I actually worked on notes, a lot of these stuff, the ratings have dropped, sad to say. So overall, Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms is sitting about a 67% overall, which is a D+, and that's an average of Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Letterboxd. I know there's more reviews out there, but that's just the three that I chose. But it's still going to give you a good idea of where the movie sits at. From Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score was 70%. At the time of this recording, when I worked on these notes, it was 74%. Ouch, that's a pretty good drop. IMDb is 6.8 out of 10, which is it was at 69% when I did the notes, 68% now, so about 1% drop. And Letterboxd held at 3.1, which is about 62%. So, I mean, when it comes to those reviews, it gives it a D+. Now, there was some news not like national news or anything like that, but in the Mortal Kombat community, there was news about YouTubers being divided on the movie. We had some YouTubers praising the movie, some YouTubers kind of in the middle. Myself, I was kind of like in the middle. And then we had other YouTubers, like True Underdog and Brusk Poet and some other ones that were a little harsh, maybe, or a little bit of both. And then some were criticizing other reviewers and people's reviews about what they said about the movie, but it's fine. It's not that big a deal. People were highlighting these, and I think even some people on Twitter were, sharing their comments. But I think overall, we still all come to a common, ground. I did a poll on this on my community tab, and a lot of people enjoyed it. I mean, I was expecting the number to be flipped and people either hating it or agreeing more with the middle as far as it had problems overall, but I still liked it. But the one that got the most votes on the poll was I liked it. So I think despite whatever, fans overall, like I said in my review, Mortal Kombat fans overall are going to just enjoy this movie regardless of its flaws and see it for what it is and just be glad that we get Mortal Kombat content. So given all that, I lead up to you again. If you've seen Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms, given that you've had plenty of time now, what are your thoughts on it? And if you had to give it a grade or, a percentage review, what would you give it? Continuing on with some more Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms news, let's talk about a Mileena concept art that was released on Twitter. So as I said, this concept art does come from Twitter user @Eduqueve, hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. And he basically got this from the Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms Blu-ray. I guess it's like a behind the scenes, featurette that they have as a special content. And it shows what we would have gotten had we gotten Mileena. Now, I know there have been credits, snapshots of the credits where we actually can see that voice actors were supposed to play Scarlet and Mileena. So we know they should have been in the movie. Maybe we'll get like a director's cut or some deleted scenes or something pop up later on. But we didn't get those, but we do have some concept art of what Mileena would have looked like. And, to be honest, compared to the way the characters are designed as far as the animation goes, she's much of what we expect, right? And I think, with Mileena, she's more, I would say, along the lines of the more modern versions of Mileena. So obviously not anything like from, Mortal Kombat 3 or maybe like Mortal Kombat 4. She's more of like 11, slightly. I would say she's more of like Mortal Kombat 9 and 10, maybe? Somewhere in there with a little bit of maybe some deception as far as like the mouth and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, it doesn't really matter what she would look like. I think overall, we would just have wanted her in the movie. But given how they were kind of throwing characters away, injuring them, killing them, which is still up for debate, but nonetheless, it's kind of like not getting a lot of backstory. I kind of would want Mileena to not be that way, not just put her in to put her in, but like give her some type of purpose. So in the end, we at least know that she was acknowledged and that she would have been in, but possibly, crossing fingers and praying we get a Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms 3 announcement or a Mortal Kombat Legends HBOMax animated series where we could possibly see this version of Mileena pop up in the future. All right, so let's move on to some Mortal Kombat movie news. So I have two pieces of news for this section, and they both come from We Got This Covered. So I know that for some people out there, We Got This Covered is kind of want, but sometimes they can be hit or miss. I know a lot of their articles are just kind of like titles, really, and when you go to look at the details, there's kind of But I think it leaves room for interpretation and really kind of gets the conversation going. And so that's why we talk about them. So first up, let's talk about possibly the Mortal Kombat movie sequel being an HBO Max only release. Now, okay, hear me out. So I'm going to say what could be true about this and what could not be true about this. So why this could be true. So given the pandemic box office that we've been dealing with lately, as far as having movies that go theatrical release only or day and date as far as theatrical release and streaming, I think that it's all impossible that this could really happen. So with Shang-Chi, obviously that being a Marvel movie, and Marvel movies are expected to open up with really big box offices, it didn't really, it did really well. Let's just say that. It did really well for a pandemic movie, I would say. It's like around 90 million is what it's done for the weekend, and probably more than that. It's broken Labor Day box office records. It's the most highly reviewed Marvel MCU movie. Fans are really loving it. It's probably going to have really good percentage rate drop as far as some other recent, blockbuster movies and recent releases. So overall, it's doing good, and it'll probably earn a lot of money. Now, in comparison, it's like, of course, Mortal Kombat, which is a third, not, I think maybe a third of that, like in the $30 million range. You have to keep in mind that while the original Mortal Kombat movie did earn with its global box office, earn its budget back, and it does, I think, have a lot of good word of mouth. And with the Samba TV article talking about how 5.5 million households watch, so it's the most watched HBO Max show, that means there was a lot of HBO Max subscribers, new and old. So I think when you look at it that way, when that comparison, it's not the big blockbuster that Warner Bros. Would want. It could be the bigger streaming blockbuster that HBO Max needs, if that really makes sense. Also have to keep in mind that with a lot of the 2022, 2023 movies, given the way the box office is going right now with the Delta variant and possibly other variants of the coronavirus coming out, it's pushing some of these movies further and further back. And while originally from 2020 to 2021 was crowded, 2022 is kind of looking that way too, and eventually those movies will have to be pushed to 2023. And typically when it comes to sequels, assuming we're not going for like, nostalgic sequels that take years and decades to happen, typically the sequels usually will take like 2 to 3 years to release. So given 2021, that's about 2023, so we're kind of on point, 2023, 2024 maybe. So it's possible that we could still get a theatrical release. I think it possibly that we would actually get more of an HBO Max only release. Would you watch Mortal Kombat if it was on HBO Max only? I know I would. I have it anyway. I know like this weekend I'm going to watch *Malignant*. I'm not going to be able to watch it in theaters, so I'm going to watch it on HBO Max. I watched *Reminiscence*. Not a very good movie, but I watched it on HBO Max. *The Little Things* was on HBO Max. There's a lot of those movies on HBO Max. They could still release Mortal Kombat on there, and I think it would boost their subscribers since it won't be released in theaters. Now, on the flip side, why this could not be true. As I said, they did recoup the $55 million budget, and their contracts already say that they're, like a lot of the actors that did the original movie, they're already contracted to do more movies. Now, I don't know if the cast contracts say that they have to be in theaters. We don't know all the particulars about it. But like with the recent lawsuit with Disney versus Scarlett Johansson over Black Widow, and, them dealing with the financials of if it's better to, because it didn't, her thing is she didn't want Black Widow to come out at all, at least during this pandemic time. Disney released it anyways. She feels that because they did that, it hurt financially at the box office, plus all the money that they made on Disney Plus, she's not going to cut of that. So there's a lot of that involved, and I know that with Warner Brothers, they kind of prepaid a lot of their, all the people up front in like a lump sum to kind of mask all of that. So you don't hear any lawsuits yet with Warner Brothers involved with all their day and date releases or HBO Max only releases. So, I mean, there's that going on. Plus, you also had Wonder Woman 1984 director Patty Jenkins talking about how streaming, she doesn't believe in movies going to stream like blockbuster movies, and she doesn't even hear about them or recognize them, which I think is really odd because they do exist. And she doesn't even take like the Netflix movies seriously, and she says a bunch of other stuff, and I don't really agree with a lot of what she had to say, because I know that there are just directors out there like the guy that directed Dune, the new Dune. He's all about how it should be in theaters and it's an experience. And there's tons of people out there that are like that, and I get it. But, given the way the people are right now with going to movies and, the box office, I myself have been trying to go to the theater as much as I can while it's still around. Because, in my town, we lost a theater for a while and it came back, and I feel like it's hurt that because, people have already thought of it being gone, so people aren't going to that theater anymore, and I don't imagine it's going to be around for a whole lot longer. But we at least have one movie theater left for the time being, but it's a smaller chain, so I feel like it's more vulnerable to the market. So there's a chance that eventually we could have no theater in my area, which would kind of suck, because the bigger markets are 4 or 5 hours away from me, so I can't really go there and go see a movie. So try to get all the theater action I can get before the possible apocalypse of the theaters could happen. It might happen. Anyways, so while this could not be true, I do think that we do have to keep in mind that movie theaters, especially the chains, the associations, they still are pressing the movie studios to still release movies in theaters, if at least only in theaters, or have a dual release. So I still think that Mortal Kombat 2, whatever they call it, could still have either a theaters only release or a dual release. And I think it would still be successful, if not more, given that they might make some tweaks that fans have been asking for so the sequel could be more successful. So in the comments below, let me know, would you want to have Mortal Kombat release on HBOMax only, theaters only, dual release? Does it really matter to you? Let me know below. Alright, the next part of Mortal Kombat news, let's talk about a possible Johnny Cage spinoff. Now, anytime I hear about these spinoffs, I think, okay, are we going to go character by character? Now, I know in past news we talked about possible spinoffs, so it was with an S, so they didn't specifically name how many. They said maybe 2, maybe, maybe, and we knew there's plural, so we could get more than one. But first we had a Sonya Blade possible female-led spinoff that could be either a movie or a series, and now we're getting news or rumors that there's going to be a Johnny Cage spinoff movie. Now I know he's a fan favorite, but if he's going to be in the sequel, which we know he'll be in the sequel, and then he's going to get a spinoff on his own, I don't know if that's really needed. Do we really need a Johnny Cage spinoff? What could that story really tell? I mean, I think, given the character, there's not saying we don't need a lot of backstory for the character, and then maybe it would be kind of cool to see what Johnny Cage does in his real, in his day-to-day life with, I guess, Sonya Blade. And, I mean, think about the characters he would hang out with. I mean, would it be a prequel? Would we be going through his days as an actor? I don't know if I'd want that. I don't know if fans would want that. Now, I know that there's been, like, a lot of backstory to Johnny Cage as far as, like, his powers and the ancestral history behind that. Maybe we could get something like that. But I don't know about Johnny Cage spinoff, in my personal opinion. I don't really know what they could really do with it, other than maybe after the sequel, something happens in that movie that, like, spins him off on a, it's just hard to say, because I feel like if we set up like the game where Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade still are a romantic item, they don't necessarily have to be in the movie. They could do something different with that. But if they decide to go there, because I think those two characters' chemistry just kind of go together anyways, and they kind of work off each other, they're just polar opposites, but still in love. I think it'd be kind of weird to set that up and then have her own spinoff, and then him have his own spinoff, and maybe there's no cross, overlap, parallel, whatever. So I think that'd be kind of weird, and it kind of just makes me think that may not be true. I feel like with them, they have to kind of go hand in hand, and I think that, as I said, they could have had a Sonya Blade spinoff that's like a prequel series. That could work. And she could also be in the Johnny Cage spinoff afterwards. So I guess it could work. But I don't know. I just think that's a lot of, that might be too much Sonya Blade for people. And I don't know. I just don't know that Johnny Cage, I think there's other characters that we could explore that, Shaolin Monks. Do a Shaolin Monks spinoff or something. I think there's more characters out there that fans would probably want for a spinoff series. Would you want a Johnny Cage spinoff for the movie, or even like a possible series? In the comments below. All right, and the last piece of news I want to talk about was DC FanDome 2021. So we know from DC FanDome, from what feels like forever ago, it was basically more of a traditional Warner Brothers DC event. I was like a little mini Comic-Con for DC. And it was great, and I enjoyed it, and a lot of fans got hyped because Ed Boon was a guest on one of the panels there, and gave his opinion about some stuff, and we all thought that you know, Mortal Kombat 11 wasn't in the hype, and we were worried about, you know, all these combat packs and DLC. And so we thought, oh man, we're going to get some news about Mortal Kombat 11 combat pack at DC FanDome. Well, that did not happen. Now, since the announcement of DC FanDome 2021, some of that news has been ramped up again. Oh, can we have Mortal Kombat 11 combat packs coming? No. Let's go ahead and nip that in the bud right now. I've seen people on Twitter talk about that. Even people on my channel comment on that. And while I appreciate your enthusiasm, I think that Mortal Kombat 11 is done. Okay, I think they're done. Although I did see an article about a new brutality that was discovered for Shao Kahn, I believe. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But nonetheless, I think that we're not going to get any new DLC for that game. So I think we can get that out of our mind. But the new thing now is, are we going to get any Mortal Kombat 12 news or like a teaser or something? Now, DC FanDome was supposed to come out in October of this year, and we're in September now, so we're not that far off. And well, I think that while we're getting articles that Mortal Kombat 12 is in the early development stages, and it seems it's been more of like a reaction to what's been going on with WWE games possibly being sold, that doesn't give me a whole lot of enthusiasm that NetherRealm Studios is like, yeah, we got something ready for fans because we were ready for this. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm trying not to be, you know, sorry to be a Debbie Downer and trying to be negative. There's always hope, 5%. I'll give you 5%. There's always a 5% chance that something Mortal Kombat could always happen at DC FanDome. But I think, given the way the box office has been going, given that certain movies are still supposed to come out, like Aquaman 2, Black Adam, the Shazam sequel, we got the Flash, you know, movie. I mean, that's a lot of stuff right there. And those are all things that need our attention because they could possibly get pushed back even more. And so we got to keep them on our mind and keep them fresh. And we got video games coming out like the Suicide Squad game and Gotham Knights. So there's already a bunch of stuff already happening. So I just don't think that we're going to get anything Mortal Kombat. So sorry to burst your bubble. But I wanted to throw that in there because a lot of people are already talking about it online. And yeah, DC FanDome will not be it this year. And that's it for today's video, guys. Make sure to hit that like button. For more of this one, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time on the MashUp.